Happy Friday. It's exactly 2100 Central African time. Good evening and welcome to Africa World Hour. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. We're, of course, coming to you live from Johannesburg, South Africa, and catch us live on SABC Plus app, on DSTV Bouquet. We are on channel 802 and OpenView channel 628. My name is Innocent Semosa, in for Tsepiso Magwetla.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet, channel 628.
All right, let's look at Africa World Hour top stories this evening. Malawi's outgoing President Lazarus Chakwera will physically hand over power to his successor, Peter Mutharika, tomorrow in a move that politically and human rights activists have described it as maturity. But we also know that government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has told the media that 4 SADC leaders from Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique, and Eswatini have confirmed it will be part of the event. George Mango reports from Blantyre, Malawi.
Former Presidents Joyce Banda, who ruled Malawi between 2012 and 2014, and Bakiri Molozi between 1994 and 2004, have also confirmed their attendance at the swearing-in ceremony, including that of the inauguration of President-elect and Vice President-elect. Outgoing Vice President Michael Wusi and former Vice President Kumbo Kachali are also expected to show up. The event, which will last almost 5 hours, will take place at Kamuzu Stadium in Blantyre, Malawi's commercial capital. African Union's leadership and those from other regional blocs such as SADC, East African Community and COMESA have also confirmed.
And now South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation says they are working closely with the French authorities to repatriate the body of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa. The 58-year-old ANC veteran reportedly died after falling from the 22nd floor of a hotel in Paris on Monday. Spokesperson Crispin Piri says the department will continue to update the nation as arrangements for the memorial and burial unfold.
I think a number of details moving forward will be provided by the family. They do have representatives in Paris currently that are also interfacing with the French authorities, and there would be some information that we think we would take guidance from them how to relay this to the public. Of course, we are working quite closely with them and consulting with them quite extensively on a number of issues. Once we are in a position to repatriate the former ambassador, we will then also communicate around issues of the memorial service and a number of other activities.
Now, Secretary General of the African National Congress Party in South Africa, Fikile Mbalula, says they will not shield party members who are implicated in allegations of corruption and other wrongdoings. It's after revelations at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, where the likes of ANC-NEC member and embattled police minister Senzo Mchunu have been implicated in evidence. The late ambassador also, we do know that the embattled police minister, or should I say the late ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa's name was also came under fire at the commission by that particular commission. And of course, Ntantla Mkhwanazi, almost 2 weeks ago, he spoke about the issues around the minister being implicated in that commission.
We're not spending sleepless nights because those who were deployed to lead this ministry, which is now focusing on the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi, we support the Madlanga Commission and to deal with the matters that are before it. We expect our members, wherever they are deployed, to conduct themselves in a disciplined way and to do the work for the citizens on behalf of the ANC diligently. We will be very disappointed to see them in the wrong side, and in that we will not be together. We didn't send them and deploy them to be on the wrong side either of the law or also in their own conduct.
Now, both parents, regardless of gender, sex, color, and circumstances, will now be entitled to equal parental leave of 4 months and 10 days that they can share. The Constitutional Court in South Africa has anonymously confirmed the constitutional invalidity of sections of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. It found that the provision in the Act dealing with the parental leave entitlement of birth mothers and fathers amounted to unfair discrimination. The sections has been successfully challenged in the High Court in Johannesburg by Werner van Wyk and Inka van Wyk after the Mr. van Wyk approached his employer with a request for paternity leave, and he was informed that he was only eligible for 10 days parental leave. Justice Zukisa Shikri has delivered an unanimous Concord judgment.
This court finds that the discrimination caused by the impugned provisions is unfair and unconstitutional. The protection of birth mothers to the exclusion of other parents has the unfortunate consequence of perpetrating the assumption that women are and should be the primary caregivers of children. The father is marginalized and deprived of the opportunity to involve himself as a parent in the upbringing of the baby during the early stages of life.
Now, despite this, Seldman emphasized Israel's intention to release the activist as quickly as possible following the deportation of 4 Italian citizens.
We've seen a few of these flotillas in the past, and they've always been taken care of very well, and been released very swiftly. So I don't think there's any cause to worry. As the photos of them have been released, they're taken care of, and they will be released within a short time.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste, et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
All right, TikTok is under fire again, this time for what could be a direct breach of the UK's Online Safety Act. Now, an investigation has revealed that children as young as 13, the app's minimum sign-up age, are being fed suggestions that lead them straight to pornography. Campaigners say this shows TikTok's safety filters and either broken or deliberately weak, raising fears about how easy minors are being exposed to harmful content. To talk to us about this worrying phenomenon, we're now joined on the line by Mark Stephens, CBE lawyer and expert on media regulations. Mark, a very good evening to you and welcome to Channel Africa. Mark, are you with us?
Yeah, yes, I am. I can hear you.
Yeah, indeed, Mark. The Online Safety Act was designed to really place a legal duty of care on platforms in practice. How far does that duty extend, and does TikTok's failure here go beyond negligence into systemic non-compliance?
I think you're right. I think it is systemic non-compliance. Essentially, what the researchers did was they took a phone, cleaned it, put it back to factory settings as if you had just bought it new off the shelf. You put in your date of birth and it offers you an age-appropriate restricted mode. And that's intended to provide parents, guardians, the ability to limit certain exposure of inappropriate content. So TikTok itself says you shouldn't see mature or complex themes, and particularly shouldn't see sexually explicit material. And of course, on a clean phone, it offers you the opportunity to search. So you tap in that, and it offers you the first 10 topics that you might like to look at. And the first ones were pretty usual. Often it came up TikTok Shop UK or TikTok Shop. But then it immediately goes into search terms like adults on TikTok, very rude babes, and more explicit descriptions at that point. And of course, what this means is that TikTok's idea of a restricted mode, which is intended to comply with our law here in the UK, is a bit like putting a fake padlock on the front door with the key under the mat, so that anyone can come along and see the material that they're supposed to be protected from.
Yeah, indeed, Mark. And you and I can agree that internet has evolved over time. And now we're hearing that TikTok's defense often rests on the complexity of its algorithm. Legally speaking then, Mark, can platforms hide behind the black box of AI recommendation system? Or are they still fully accountable for harmful outcomes?
No, they are accountable for harmful outcomes, particularly where they haven't complied with the appropriate restrictions for under 18-year-old individuals. And one of the problems here is that this isn't just some minor technical glitch, as TikTok would try and have you believe. It's a kind of moral failure where the platform is nudging children towards content, and it's just irresponsible. They shouldn't be able to see it. And I think it's really a direct challenge to Parliament's will. And they know that if children of 13, 14 see this kind of material, they'll be on the platform for longer, they'll earn more money. And so, of course, they try to get them addicted to this kind of material at a very early age.
Yeah, Mark, what stronger legal recommendations here or remedies could we see? Forced, design changes. I'm asking this because of the issues around the algorithm audits, or even criminal liability for executives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the one hand, the company has legal obligations to ensure that its algorithms don't deliver material which is harmful or illegal in some way. And they've obviously been asleep on the job or failed comprehensively to achieve that. But similarly, it's not a great shout for the regulators here. We have a regulator called Ofcom who looks after TV, radio, and streaming and internet platforms. And they appear to be asleep on the job as well. I mean, the idea that you're reviewing strategies after the fact, is a bit like installing seatbelts after the crash. It's not appropriate to have a post-mortem. We're supposed to be having prevention here. That's what this tool was intended to do. It's not doing it. And I think, it speaks to both the regulator and, more importantly, to the platforms' failure to test this in the way that members of the public, frankly, have.
Yeah, and which brings me to the next question, members of the public. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, Mark, but beyond just the Online Safety Act and looking at the children's rights, could this exposure to pornography be considered a violation under, a broader human rights or children's protection frameworks?
Yes, it could. I mean, so some of the material is sort of lewd, but not illegal. But if you see material which involves children, for example, or extreme acts, then that can be a criminal offence. We have an organisation here called the Internet Watch Foundation, which has been working for decades now to try and eradicate the most egregious material, But the primary responsibility lies with the companies themselves, lies with the regulators and people who enforce the law. The regulators should be testing compliance by the platforms, but they don't seem to be doing that either. It shouldn't really fall to Global Witness, a non-governmental organization supported by grants and philanthropy, to draw attention to these egregious breaches of the rules.
Yeah, I know that it can be difficult to really navigate the regulating space simply because it's technology and we're quite new at this, all of us. But does this case then, Mark, highlight the challenge of regulatory global platforms, or should I say regulating these global platforms as a national level? And would you say that we're making progress in that front? Is there commitment from, entities, or should I say government and private sector, to really make sure that there is some sort of a mechanism to really regulate these platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are those kind of restrictions, and we see it. So Meta, Facebook's company, had a platform which it couldn't operate in a child-friendly manner, and they disposed of it. They chose, I suppose, legality and lawfulness over profit. It appears that TikTok has been less sensitive to their legal and regulatory obligations than they are to their financial ones. And I think until we start hitting them with large fines, which will drive their behaviors, or perhaps making directors personally liable for these kind of defalcations, then we've got to go some way before I think they'll start to comply with the letter as well as the spirit of the law.
Yeah, finally, Mark, just before I let you go, do you see this moment as a potential test case, one that could really set a precedent for holding such companies legally liable for, the real world harm and their recommendations? In your view, would you say that this is one case study that is a step in the right direction for holding them accountable?
It's certainly a step in the right direction to holding them accountable. And we have seen progress over time as people become more sophisticated and understand it. The eyes of the public are there to report. But where we seem to be lacking is in the regulatory and enforcement side. Both law enforcement and the administrative regulators don't seem to be as advanced in this game as the platforms, as the technologists themselves. So it becomes really important. And I think the learning point here is that the regulators bare their teeth. They've got to get in front of these problems. They've got to do tests to see whether the platforms, all platforms, are complying with their legal and regulatory obligations. The companies have got huge serried ranks of lawyers that they pay vast sums of money to comply with the law all over the world. They are technology lawyers, they understand this, and they could comply if but they wanted to.
Mark, thank you
maybe we need to force them to.
Yeah, indeed. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. All right, there you have it. That was Mark Steffens, CBE, offering critical insights into the legal and regulatory challenges facing TikTok and the wider social media landscape. And of course, that conversation brings us to exactly 21:19 Central African Time.
Si vous êtes un artiste promoteur qui cherche à présenter sa musique à un public plus large ou qui cherche simplement à promouvoir sa musique à la radio, nous pouvons vous aider. Mais vous pouvez faire certaines choses pour augmenter vos chances de succès. Envoyez-nous votre musique à musique@channelafrica.co.za. Nous avons besoin des informations suivantes pour vous aider au mieux. Étiquetez code ISRC, titre, interprète, compositeur, éditeur, auteur, langue et genre. Écoutez votre chanson à la radio, la bande sonore parfaite pour votre journée. Avec Channel Africa et votre musique, vous ne vous ennuierez jamais car nous jouerons votre musique. Découvrez le meilleur de la musique africaine avec Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the energy. Feel the connection. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
All right, now as part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month this October, South Africa's Government Communication and Information System is hosting a webinar focused on the theme Responsible Use of Digital Platforms. The session aims to raise public awareness about online safety, equipping citizens with the knowledge to protect themselves and use digital spaces responsibly. During her presentation, Ompile Khwate Nkiwane from Digify Africa shared some practical tips on how people can stay safe while navigating the internet. She joins us now to unpack some of the her presentation here. Ompile, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening to you. What are the biggest online risks, Ompile, that South Africans face today?
I think, to put it very practically, things that we often see that I've experienced myself, family members have experienced, you have probably experienced something called phishing, so like fake messages. You often get these too good to be true. I don't know if you've ever gotten an email from your manager or someone, you have your manager's name and it's at gmail.com instead of them using their official company email. That's something that often happens, and they're giving you an instruction. You just have to be careful of things like that. We have things like misinformation and fake news that often happens on social media platforms, on the WhatsApp groups. So your aunts and your uncles are sending you these hypothetical things that are happening, privacy breaches. These are like often when people are like sending you links through your SMS or WhatsApp, or like you press the link telling you to come and get a package somewhere that you didn't order. So those type of things are super common, and those are things that people need to look out for.
Yeah, and talking about things that people have to look out for, what can people spot? How can people really spot fake news online and scammers?
So I think on social media, always double check your source. It's something very recent happened. There's a concert of a hip hop artist that's happening. I saw the news and I was like, I needed to check all the sources. So don't just like read that one post on that one Facebook page. You need to double check if that news is correct. So like double check. Also, if something is too good to be true, it probably is. So be extra careful. If somebody's telling you won a competition that you never entered, just be careful of things like that. Look out for red flags. Trust your intuition. You can always feel like if you are being scammed into something, like I said, if something is too good to be true, or like somebody's calling you for urgent, like they urgently want to help you. So just be careful. Double check your sources. And trust your instinct.
Yeah. Talking about instincts, in fact, there was a lady online who was trying to catch a scammer, and she acted like she was in an accident because this guy was asking for her PIN, and she
I think I saw that.
Yeah, and this guy kept on asking for her PIN, saying, "Can you reach your PIN? Can you reach your phone?" And so that's just bizarre. And also you've warned about using the public Wi-Fi. That is very dangerous when you go to your app, banking app. That might be that might really put you in a precarious position. What are some of these examples, Ompile, steps to protect personal data online?
Two-factor verification is one big one for me. In the panel, I spoke about how I'm sure it's either happened to you or you know somebody. You know these WhatsApp scams where somebody gets somebody's number and then they're asking you for money. They're stuck somewhere in Mainland and they need to urgently get home. That is super common. But if you have two-factor verification on your WhatsApp, that is less likely to happen. It's not that it's impossible. Scammers are scammers. They'll always find a way, but you can certainly make it more difficult for them to do that. Make sure that you have a good password. Try not use your children's names, your names, birthdays. So just, be super vigilant. Make sure that you keep your passwords safe as well. Also limit the amount of information that you put on social media platforms. For example, I know we all like to tag in wherever that we are. That's fine, but tag in after you've left the place. Don't say I'm at so-and-so restaurant at that time. Actually tag that restaurant, or if you're at the gym, you can tag it after you've left the gym, This one is actually quite common. Don't press on links that are like, you don't know where they came from. So actually someone that I know, the reason why they got access to their WhatsApp and they were asking people for money, I asked him like, what did you do? And he said that he pressed on a link, and that link, the scammer got a hold of all his contacts and actually hijacked his number. So be very careful. Don't press in links that are foreign.
Yeah, I was one of those people where someone was using my picture to ask money on my WhatsApp platform, but luckily nobody sent because my circle is people quite double check and they know how I talk, so they could tell that this is too formal. It's too good to be true. But then
they also do that. They speak the way that you wouldn't speak. So again, even if you are a person who's receiving that text, like use your intuition, use your common sense. You can feel that you're not talking to Karabo,
And then talking about the limiting things that you can put on social media, why is responsible use of digital platforms so important, Umpile?
So our platform, Gitso, focuses on educating parents and educators to protect their kids while using the internet. So the first thing is to keep yourself safe. But I think an important one that we always forget to talk about is to make sure that your own child, your own niece is not the bully, right? I think we always talk about and we always try and protect the victims, but I think I would be absolutely devastated to find out that my child was bullying another child. And as like when we were growing up, bullying was in the playground and that's where it kind of ended, right? But now children literally kill themselves, they hang themselves because of something that happened at one classroom, and all of a sudden it's replicated and reshared and all of a sudden 1 million people have seen it. So you need to teach your child how to be a responsible digital citizen and explain to them that they're just as guilty as the person. If they spread that information, they're just as guilty as the person who actually made that content. You also need to be able to it builds trust. So if you're able to use social media responsibly, you build trust among employees, amongst your schoolmates, your communities, and you set a good example. As a parent, you need to be able to, you need to know the information. How can you teach your child content and information that you yourself don't understand and you yourself don't practice? So it helps you be like a better example for your children, your communities.
Yeah, Umpile, just before I let you go, I do know that you have a WhatsApp chat box of some sort as Digify Africa. Please educate us, enlighten us. How does it work? what are the benefits, and why is it important that people should visit that site and understand how it works?
So we built a WhatsApp learning chatbot about 4 years ago with our partner Meta, and their responsibility is to teach people how to use social media responsibly. So we wanted to make the learning fun and relatable. So we created a character. Her name is Kitso. Kitso is your teacher. And Kitso speaks in a very colloquial way. And it when you interact with the bots, you will see it's like you're talking to a person, and they teach you how to be a good digital citizen. They teach you about cybersecurity, how to stay safe on the internet. So they go on and they teach you this content, and in between the content, there's little tests to make sure that you're truly understanding what you're learning. So it's really exciting, and make sure that it has content in different forms, because obviously people learn differently. It has written content, it's got graphics, it's got voice notes, to make sure that you really enjoy the learning, and it's quite interactive. So what you do is you actually just save the number like you would a normal person's number. So you go to your dialing pad and you enter the number, you press save, you save it as Kitso, you go to WhatsApp, and you say hi, you start learning. So I'm going to give you guys the number. It's 076 593 7181. 076 593 7181.
All right, Umphile, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and continue to do the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good night.
All right, there you have it. That was Umphile Nkiwane from Digify Africa, really talking to us about the issues around cybersecurity awareness. That conversation brings us to exactly 21:32 Central African Time. This is Africa World Hour on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Channel Africa ili ndi nkhani zabwino za mu Africa komanso atola nkhani aluso mu maiko a mu Africa. Zambia
ndine Daniel Elisha Banda, Zambia.
Zimbabwe
ndiri muno Harare, ndine mtola nkhani wa Channel Africa John Cassian.
Mozambiki
ndine Bright Sonjera Malomo Waireshi Channel Africa Mozambiki.
Malawi
malo mwa Channel Africa kuno ku Lilongwe ndine Jenny Chilima Mpunga.
South Africa mzinda wa Pretoria ndine Michael Mbewe. Mverani nkhani zochitika pena paliponse pa Channel Africa, kamlondola wa zochitika pena paliponse.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
All right, as the B-Lab Africa Summit concluded its final day in Johannesburg, South Africa, one of the standout discussions focused on the role of artificial intelligence in driving sustainability across Africa. Experts explored both the opportunities and the challenges AI presents for businesses, farmers and communities. Our reporter, Lebohang Mabange, has more.
Artificial intelligence is transforming how decisions are made, particularly in sectors linked to sustainability. Luke Heyman, co-founder and executive director of Sustainable Kenya, highlighted the potential for AI to help businesses and farmers use their data more effectively.
And I think there were some really interesting points, particularly around this dichotomy of the opportunities, but also the risks. And I think the opportunities that we see are really around the ability for businesses, farmers, different value chains to own their own data, to spend less time collecting, processing, analyzing data, and therefore spending more time using that data to make decisions. So I think that's where some of the opportunities lie.
While AI offers new ways to work smarter, Heyman also warned about its impact on jobs, especially for young people entering the workforce.
Some of the risks are particularly around employment. So we've been speaking around the number of people in sub-Saharan Africa who are joining the job market every year. So we have around 12 million people, and only 2 million are finding formal employment. And then that's the situation right now. Whereas we're seeing that AI is sort of taking up the space of entry-level jobs. The CEO of Anthropic expects around half of white-collar entry-level jobs to disappear over the next 5 years. So that presents a real risk for the youth bulge or the use dividend in sub-Saharan Africa.
Another challenge is scaling sustainability projects in Africa, where expertise is often limited and value chains fragmented. Heyman explained how AI could overcome these barriers.
The challenges to scaling sustainability projects in Africa is, until now, it's relied on individual expertise, so consultants and sustainability experts. And there's a limit to how many businesses an expert can engage with. And when we see value chains in Africa, they're often quite fragmented. For example, if you look at smallholder farmers in Kenya, the average size, it's often less than 1 acre that a farmer is farming. And so there's a real hard limit to how many farmers an individual can support. Whereas AI and technology presents an opportunity there to do that at scale in a sort of conversational way rather than an assessment way.
Looking ahead, Heyman sees the greatest opportunity for AI in combining global sustainability frameworks with local and indigenous practices, helping communities access markets and grow sustainably.
The biggest opportunities for AI in sustainability in Kenya is translating these many complex frameworks at a global level, and also translating local practice, and particularly traditional and indigenous practice that's often sustainable, and making the two speak together and doing that at scale. I think that presents an enormous opportunity to unlock capital, to unlock access to markets, and to support businesses and farmers to grow.
For Africa, the conversation makes it clear AI is more than just a technology. It's a tool that could reshape sustainability, empower communities, and help the continent tackle some of its most pressing challenges. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
All right, on to this story now. African Energy Week 2025 concluded in Cape Town with $13.4 billion in dealings unveiled, climate protest at the gates, and a blunt message: reforms alone won't power Africa without real projects and inclusion. As the founder of the event, NJ Ayuk, has often reminded delegates, we cannot talk about Africa's energy future without recognizing the central role women play today. Of course, today on Africa World Hour, we ask, how are women reshaping Africa's energy governance, and what must change to unlock their full potential? We're joined on the line by Noni Mashika Dennison, spokesperson at Petro SA. Noni, a very good evening to you and welcome to Channel Africa.
Good evening, Innocent, and good evening to the viewers.
Yeah, indeed. It looks like it was a successful event, and congratulations to the organizers of the event. But why did your organization choose to protest outside the or should I say the issues around energy today? There's really a dichotomy, for lack of a better term. But what's the single biggest barrier today that women are facing in entering leadership roles across Africa's energy sector?
Yeah, absolutely. Innocent, what we've seen, especially in the energy sector, is that the sector is quite competitive, especially for women coming into a male-dominated industry like the energy sector. And the biggest barrier has really been finding role models and mentors for the upcoming youth to participate meaningfully in the energy sector, especially for women in particular. Because the sector being male-dominated has really not opened up to women participation effectively. But we have seen much traction over the years with much of the women that have joined the sector over time and been included in the sector. But really, the biggest barrier has been finding the right role models that are able to drive the discussions for women inclusion within the energy sector.
Yeah, at this year's African Energy Week, Noni, did you perhaps see genuine commitments to gender priority in energy deals as a woman, do you still feel sidelined, or you saw a bit of commitment?
I must say, with the Africa Energy Week 2025, we've really seen a lot more of inclusion of women within the energy space. And this has been quite encouraging, especially taking into account the significant transactions that would come out from such platforms, especially from a negotiation perspective. Therefore, I think we've seen an encouraging increase of women participation in the sector. And we've seen even on the panels that have been participated on within this particular space, a lot more women participating. And if you look at the transactions within the energy sector in recent years, we've got significant transactions where women have actually led these transactions, which are really significant transactions. And you look at the transactions such as the Sasol Shakira in Romco, and also the acquisition of the Sapref refinery. And these transactions were led by women. One such woman was Miss Brenda Mwachi, and also the other one being led by Miss Sisako Magada. So it has been quite significant in that regard.
And talking about significance, how do membership networks like the Women in Energy Power Cycle move the needle beyond just symbolism?
I must say, Innocent, if you look at the Women in Energy Power Circle and how this particular network drives women participation, I think they have been moving from being symbolic in their approach and rather focusing on inclusion of the next generation of women in the right direction. What we saw effectively from last year and including this year's participation was the inclusion of younger women that are also upcoming in their own right, in their own roles, that have participated and have been having conversations with women leaders in the energy sector. And this really drives those conversations to a grassroots level where the conversations are able to be tangible in terms of implementation. But what we also saw this year was the consideration of critical milestones that are going to make sure that women are included within the workplace. And this will result in the women who participated in the Power Circle going back to their respective operational environments to be able to drive the different milestones in the right direction to ensure that there's gender parity and also gender mainstreaming within the energy sector. So it is quite encouraging for women to participate within this Power Circle and to drive the discussions in the right direction.
Yeah, and Noni, earlier you highlighted some of the women that led projects in Africa's energy space that shows that women's stewardship and presence has impact in action. But then how should financing models and investor criteria evolve to really favor inclusive and women-led ventures?
No, absolutely, Innocent. If you look at projects within the energy space and how these particular projects require significant financial capital, the inclusion of women within that particular element from a finance perspective means we require financial institutions such as the DFIs or the developmental financial institutions and also private capital to drive funding models that are more inclusive towards women and that are able to cater and take into consideration women needs and the fact that women have not been previously been involved. Therefore, it means the funding models that are going to be utilized have to be quite innovative, taking into account the ability of including women within the sector.
Noni Mashika Dennison, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Innocent.
All right. She's the spokesperson at Petro SA.
Joël Mouteba sur Vue d'Afrique.
Édouard, la mobilisation générale a été décrétée au Burkina Faso. Qu'est-ce que cela veut dire concrètement?
Oui, on va peut-être considérer ce que le ministre de la Défense et des anciens combattants, le colonel-major Kassoum Koulibaly, a expliqué. Pour lui, c'est une forme d'instauration de mobilisation générale et de la mise en garde qui vise à donner un cadre juridique légal à l'autorité, à l'État, de prendre des actions et de mettre en œuvre au regard du péril que traverse le pays, de telle enseigne que toutes les couches de la société, en dehors des militaires, puissent être concernées. Et ils reviennent à dire que ça vient à la suite des propos du président qui dit que nous sommes totalement en guerre. Et quand on est totalement en guerre, ça veut dire qu'il faut que tout le monde se sente concerné.
Joël Mouteba sur Vue d'Afrique.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
Now, healthcare workers for Palestine, South Africa took to the streets on Thursday, staging protests outside 17 hospitals across 4 provinces. The demonstrations came after Israel's interception of the global Samud flotilla, which was attempting to break the Gaza blockade and deliver humanitarian aid. The group accuses Israel of piracy and abduction and is calling on world governments to demand the safe release of flotilla participants and to act against what they describe as a genocide in Gaza. To talk to us about this marches, we are now joined on the line by Dr. Sama El Bourey, Western Cape Chair of HCW4PSA and a pediatrician. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time and good evening to you.
Good evening to you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Why did your organization choose to protest outside hospitals? And specifically, what is the symbolic link between healthcare spaces in South Africa and the crisis in Gaza?
So actually, this protest comes part of a monthly protest that's been happening since July of this year, and initially started as a response to the international call by Doctors Against Genocide, where they asked that international healthcare workers go outside their hospitals during their lunchtime, bang pots and pans to basically bring awareness to the imminent famine at that time. As you know, we're well into the famine stage at this time. So, we're very much past that. But we continue to protest outside our healthcare spaces to essentially keep this struggle alive and to continue bringing awareness. The symbolic link for us between South Africa and between Gaza and why we stood outside hospitals is essentially, there is severe resource shortages. There is severe health system inequities, in both countries. And so it's very easy for us to see that link. In Gaza itself, it's also, it's basically, we're seeing something that's completely, we haven't ever seen before. And so where hospitals in Gaza are supposed to be places of care, they're actually just places of death. There's no fully functional hospitals left. And people who come to hospitals are faced with mass shortages of equipment, can't be treated, and doctors and healthcare workers, all staff themselves, face threat. So standing outside our own hospitals, we reflect on the systemic inequalities in both countries, and also the crazy starvation and mass genocide that's occurring in Gaza.
Indeed, Dr. Sama, I believe I'm pronouncing your word correct, your name correctly. You have described Israel's, interception of the flotilla as piracy, legally, Doc, and ethically. How should the international communities classify such an act, especially when humanitarian aid and medical supplies are involved?
I think the international community needs to call it what it is. It is a violation of international humanitarian law, specifically Articles 23, 55, and 56. And, international humanitarian law says that in a time of war, you cannot block access of food, of aid, of medical supply to a party. And in any case, if you've got an occupied territory, those who are occupying cannot block an entire population from access to food, care, and medical supply. Healthcare professionals and healthcare staff and healthcare workers and hospitals have a special protection under international law. So you've got a situation where you have a global Samud, flotilla who declared upfront that they were peaceful, declared they were bringing life-saving food, water, medicines, aid, and with 44 vessels, 500 activists from around the world, they sail in international waters with international activists on, and are then assaulted and essentially stormed by the Israeli Defense Force, who then are, throw cannon waters at them, essentially imprison them. They've abducted the activists, and then imprisoned them. And that is, this is actually also not new. There's been a full siege on Gaza for the past 18 years. So they're not allowing in aid via air, land, or water. So this has been one of the biggest fleet of flotillas that gone through. And in this time of genocide, and in this time where there's over 60,000 people dead, over 120,000 people injured, and very little aid, and aid that has been provided has been death traps for people. It's insane that they haven't let anything through in international waters by international staff.
Yeah, from a health ethics perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I hear you correctly, you are saying that the denial of medical aid and blockade of essential supplies in Gaza continues to be a direct violation of international humanitarian law. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying. These things are very easy to look up. Article 53, Article 55, Article 56, it is there in plain and simple language to see. If you don't want to see it, if you want to remain ignorant, that is on the person, but it is there. And we are unequivocally saying that is what's happening, and that has been the case.
And as a healthcare professional, how do you connect your duty of care locally with advocacy for people under siege thousands of kilometers away?
It's a very interesting question because to those of us conscientized by South African public health sector states and facing South African healthcare practices, it doesn't really feel very far away. You don't need to be in Gaza to experience what's been happening and to bear witness. In this age of social media, we're seeing it every day on our phones. It's in the news. It's in our homes. We're meeting Palestinians who have fled the country and have come to South Africa. We're hearing the stories. So I don't think, one can say it's far away anymore. There are the things that you see in a hospital, especially in our communities, the violence, the gun violence, burn wounds. In South Africa, children who are starving, children who experience malnutrition. You can't help but see that and then think of those experiencing the same to such a large and crazy extent in Gaza. Anyone who's conscientized and who sees what's happening in South African public health care would be able to make the connection. If you don't, then to be quite honest, you're just being ignorant or you're denying your humanity. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, indeed, and you become irrelevant. But I know that you spoke about this, but maybe if you can expatiate, you have used the word genocide to describe the situation in Gaza. Perhaps can you expand on how healthcare data, the likes of mortality and malnutrition, collapse of hospitals, supports that framing of the word genocide?
100%. I like to keep things simple for our understanding. So essentially, for genocide, you need intent and you need specific acts. And your intent should be to destroy a nation, ethnic or racial or religious group, in part or whole. So in terms of physical acts, you need killing of members of a group. You need to cause serious bodily or mental harm. You need to bring about conditions where the life expands or decrease, and you're unable to live because of the conditions that's imposed. You prevent births. You can forcibly transfer children from one group to another. So that's the underlying genocide, the basis of genocide. In Gaza, you have over 60,000 people killed, more than 120,000 injured. And that is probably an underestimate. There's a study in the Lancet that says probably the full effects of this war is about over 186,000. The lifespan has reduced from 75.5 to 40.6 years in just a year. It's nearly halved. You've got gastro that's increased. You've got polio. You've got 1,500 healthcare workers at least that's been killed. You don't have a single fully functioning hospital. And the UN Office of High Commissioner report, I don't know if you remember, that came out a couple of months ago, essentially said there's grave concern over a pattern of systemic attack.
Yeah.
And look, in the end, it's not us only who's calling it genocide. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Doctors Without Borders, MSF, lots of UN bodies, and the International Genocide Scholars have called it a genocide, and Israel's own Physicians for Human Rights and B'Tselem have called it a genocide. So,
Yeah, Dr.
This is
Dr. Sama, and South Africa has taken Israel to the International Court of Justice over Gaza. In your view, what further steps would you like to see the South African government taking to protect humanitarian workers and upholding international laws? And some people, of course, have called for South Africa to stop providing coal to Israel. What are some of the steps that you want South Africa to do to really make sure that they cut ties and put pressure on Israel?
The ICJ court case was extremely commendable in a time where nobody else had the guts to take on Israel on the international stage, and it started an extremely great proceeding. But we need more, not just from South Africa, but from all countries, but specifically South Africa. We'd like to see the adoption of the anti-apartheid bill, where essentially we implement boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, because in the end, it is about finances, and it is about, cutting ties with Israel completely. We'd also like, it's actually quite crazy that we are using, exporting South African mined coal to fund a genocide and to essentially wreak havoc on people's lives, and then also, have the ICJ case. So that needs to be addressed, and just continuous advocacy. And not just the government, we call on every single institution to review its ties, whether it be financially, economically, academically, with the apartheid state of Israel, and to choose the side of humanity and do something. Because the only thing that's helped South Africa was boycott, divestment, and sanctions. That is the only way we got our own freedom.
All right. Dr. Sama, thank you so very much for coming on to the show, and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That was Dr. Sama El Bori, Western Cape Chair of HCW4PSA and a pediatrician. She's talking to us about the situation in Gaza. Well, it's that time of the night where I welcome African Diaries between now and midnight. Sheila, good evening to you, and you look ready for the show. What have you got in store for our listeners?
Yeah, I don't know about that readiness that you're seeing. Good evening to you, Mr. Innocent. How was the show?
The show was wonderful. I think it was enlightening and really much educational for
Okay. All right. So what comes up on African Diaries? I hear that you were having conversations concerning South Africa and Israel, right? We're going to simmer far down from that. We're going to talk about all things beauty. Because, on Wednesday we talked about interlocking and being connected and having real, authentic relationships. But these start off with what you look like, right? So as much as we want to interlock and be connected and have meaningful relationships, I can't develop one with you if I don't find you attractive. Right?
What is attractive?
Good looking. Good looking is taking care of yourself.
Okay.
What does your skin look like? What do your nails look like? What does your hair look like? The fundamentals. And then we're going to glow up. Of course, it's the very last quarter of the year. Holidays are on the peak. Some people are in their festive season spirit, which is very fascinating for me. But besides the point, we want to be able to glow up for the festive season, potentially meet your special somebody, crossing fingers here, but also just give light to Shaz the beautician, who's going to be joining us. We're going to be quizzing her with respect to beauty products. They've been trends in the industry, right? So Korean beauty products are a thing now, and everybody's arguing that these products give you a skin that glistens in the twilight. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I've never personally used them, but I'd like to see if that's a real thing. Do you think it's real?
Yeah, it's a dichotomy. There's a thin line between...
I asked you for... I can't. I love the diplomatic answer. I love the fact that you wanted to give me an answer. That's good of you, Innocent.
Well, there you have it. That's Shailesh is with you from now until midnight on African Diaries. That's a wrap on tonight's installment of Africa World Hour from myself, Innocent Samosa, producer Dumelo Zulu, and technical producer Mr. Masina, and the rest of the African World Hour team. Thank you for listening. For comments on the show, send us an email at info@channelafrica.org. From myself, Innocent Samosa, and on behalf of the team behind the scenes, of course, it's a goodbye and God bless.
Channel Africa, where every moment is an African celebration. Feel the energy, feel the